What really happened behind the scenes when Jim Knowles, who according to Ryan Day was the best defensive coordinator ever, left the Buckeyes within hours of winning the national championship to go to rival Penn State? Well, Knowles is talking now, and now we know the rest of the story. We'll share it. Locked on Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman, 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer, and I want to thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hit that free subscribe button down below while you're watching. You don't miss a single episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. So defensive coordinator Jim Knowles, his breakup with Ohio State was ugly, and it was Penn State's gain. We have details. USC Notre Dame, is it dead with this new Notre Dame Clemson 12-year deal? Plus, how much money did each Big Ten school get this year with the TV deal? It was a lot. And we'll have Big Ten classics, all that coming up right here. But for years, Jim Knowles just ran the defense at Ohio State. Everybody left him alone. It was his own thing. He just did it. He was the guy. He was the best. Nobody questioned it. The Buckeyes look great on defense. They were always elite nationally. Even Ryan Day called him the best defensive coordinator in the country. So why did they let him go? And why did he want to leave? Well, not only did he leave, but he left for a rival, Penn State. And Ohio State let him go to a rival like that. Had a lot of questions back in January. And Penn State made him the highest paid defensive coordinator in the country to the tune of over $3 million a year. So how did all that happen? Well, timing, pride, and a lot of awkwardness, according to Jim Knowles. Along the way, we had some pieces to this story, and we discussed them at length here on Locked On Big Ten. But ESPN's Heather Dinich caught up with him this week, and he felt like talking. So we gave a few more details. So we had parts of the story, and he filled in the gaps for us here. So let's take a look, because it's an interesting story. According to Penn State coach James Franklin, barely 29 hours after Ohio State won a national championship at 5:06 a.m. in the morning, to be exact, Franklin's cell phone rang. It was Jim Knowles, and he was inquiring about the Penn State defensive coordinator job. Tom Allen had just left the Nittany Lions, was going to Clemson to go work with Dabo Swinney. And Franklin, whose season had ended a week earlier, when they lost to Notre Dame in the playoffs, he was already on the road in Philadelphia recruiting and was already pretty deep into a search for a new defensive coordinator when Knowles called. He's like, I know I'm pretty deep into this, but he was Jim Knowles, and he's the best, and he's on the other side of the phone. I got to see what's going on here. So, and of course, Ohio State's one team that James Franklin just can't beat. Well, Michigan. You know the story. Penn State is 1-12 against Ohio State since 2012. So this was where the phone call taken here. And the possibility of getting Knowles, which is way too good to pass up. And Ryan Day on the other side wasn't kidding when he said that Knowles was the best defensive coordinator in the country. The Buckeyes are number one in points allowed per game at 12.9. That's it. Number one in yards per game at 255. Number one in yards allowed per play, 4.2 yards. Pretty good all the way around. So why did Ohio State not only let him go, but actually told him, hey, don't even bother attending the parade and celebrating with the kids. Just disappear. That's a little weird. We think that's a little awkward. Did they feel betrayed by then? They had heard that he had already talked to Penn State and he was negotiating with the enemy so soon after the biggest game of the year? Maybe. I mean, there's a lot of human nature here. Maybe Knowles didn't feel warm and fuzzy about his relationship with Day and the Buckeyes. If that's the case, doesn't he have the right to look elsewhere? Knowles said that there was a delay in his contract extension offer, and it ticked him off. It ticked him off. He was working on it before the national championship, and then it just kind of cooled off. Now, everybody's getting ready for a national championship. Contracts can be done later, right? But you know how it is once the season is over, and it wasn't over yet for Ohio State, it was over for everybody else. Jobs are filling up. People want some security. So I think you can see both sides of the coin on this. Knowles thought it would be done before the championship game, the contract. And when it wasn't, he thought it might be in his best interest to call around, hence the call to Penn State. Knowles also said that the way all this went down, it created a situation that became awkward in Columbus. Of course it would. Knowles said there was eventually an offer on the table from Ohio State. He did say that. And he said it was a good offer, but it wasn't as good as Penn State's offer or a couple other schools. He let that slip out, by the way. So maybe he was making multiple phone calls before and during and after the national championship. He said, though, despite all that, he actually considered taking the lower number and staying at Ohio State because it was a great place. They've had a lot of success there. And he did, though, say when they said, hit the bricks, don't attend the parade. He was like, okay, writing's on the wall. They don't really want me. I'm out of here. No problem. But he said that's when things got super awkward around there. Both Ryan Day and Ross Bjork, the athletic director, declined Heather Dinich's request for an interview to comment on the story and give their side of the story. So why the frosty relationship, despite so much success year after year? We had never heard any problems in the past. The answer may come down to something that we explored in depth right here on Locked On Big Ten. It may come down to the Oregon game, the regular season Oregon game at Autzen Stadium, where Oregon won a 32-31 thriller, where Ohio State and quarterback Will Howard completely mismanaged the clock at the end, and the time ran out. The Buckeyes were in field goal range, and that was it. End of the game. Knowles said there was a lot of finger pointing, though, at the defense for that game. Sure, the game was a thriller. Everybody's talking about it. They only lost by 1 point. But the Buckeyes gave up 32 points in that game, and that did not sit well with Ryan Day. So, and we talked about this at length here on the flight back. Remember, they had a bye week coming up. Ryan Day was sitting here. He talked about this in interviews later. He said he was thinking about blowing up the whole defensive scheme and starting over for the rest of the season. I mean, remember, Ryan Day was on a mission last year with the name, image, and likeness, and the talent, and he was going to win. But here we are in an October game. He's giving up 32 points. He goes, that's not going to fly. That's not going to fly. We got to do something. I got to blow it up. Ultimately, he decided to keep things the same and just fix them. But that meant that Day would be sitting in on a lot of defensive meetings. Remember, he had already given up offensive play calling duties to Chip Kelly. So Ryan Day was free to manage however he wanted to manage at this point. And that meant he started sitting in on a lot of defensive meetings and making a lot of suggestions. And from what we've heard, that did not sit too well with Knowles. Again, he had been running the show by himself, defensive side of the ball. Nobody really telling him what to do. And this is just my opinion, but that's where the fracture between Jim Knowles and Ryan Day started. And that's why Ohio State may have been slow to offer him a contract extension. And that's why Jim Knowles was ready to move on so quickly after the season. See, it all makes sense now. And, of course, there was the $3.1 million a year and the fact that Knowles grew up in Philadelphia that made this Penn State job. He was a Penn State fan as a kid. That made it so attractive for him and made it so easy for him to just pick up and go. James Franklin said in past years, they would not have been able to meet a price like the one that Knowles commanded. And they would not have been able to get the best guy for the job. But Franklin said now with Pat Kraft as the AD, new school president, made all the difference this time. Franklin says, look, it's not lip service when we're trying to win the whole thing at the highest level. Another interesting but expected fact, Franklin said that so he's going to take a day here this spring, a full day. Maybe he has already. And watch the Nittany Lions past 2 games against Ohio State with Jim Knowles and go over the Knowles scouting report over the games, kind of counter program here. That'll be priceless intel right there. And maybe the intel right there might be worth $3.1 million a year. In 2023, Knowles held Penn State to 1 touchdown in a 20-12 Buckeyes win. In 2024, Penn State lost to the Buckeyes 20-13. Franklin's 1-10 against the Buckeyes. Knowles has already shared some information with quarterback Drew Aller and how he sees Drew Aller through his eyes as an opponent and known tendencies, read progressions, tendencies through the eyes of the rival coach has already been extremely valuable. Drew Aller has even admitted it and has reinforced some things that his own coaches have been telling him. So in the meantime, I've read some message boards and some social media stuff since the Heather Dinich piece, and a lot of Buckeye fans, they're pretty put off by the 5:06 a.m. phone call 29 hours after winning the championship. You know, some were led to believe that maybe Penn State reached out to him. Oh, he was in need. Somebody wanted him. It was all very flattering. He was the one making the phone calls right away. That set some people off there at Ohio State. And a lot of people call him a traitor and go, good riddance. And we can't wait for that game, Penn State and Ohio State on November 1st. They feel betrayed. They can't wait for that game, Penn State at Ohio State. We'll see how. I can't wait either. It's going to be great. Your comments. Love to hear from you, Buckeye fan. Love to hear from you, Penn State fan. Hit us up on the comments here on YouTube. And be sure to hit that subscribe button down below so you never miss a single episode. And don't forget all of our podcasts and Big Ten school merchandise right at our website, talkbig10.com. So check that out there. Get your Buckeyes gear. Get your Penn State gear for the upcoming season. Get your school spirit. All the links are right there on that website. All right, lots more to get to here. Notre Dame just agreed to a 12-year deal to play Clemson every year. What does this mean for the USC rivalry? Plus, how much money did each of the Big Ten schools get this year with this big TV money deal? It's just a tip of the iceberg. And 10 Big Ten players going to the NBA Combine. We'll tell you about those and our Big Ten Classics all coming up. We got a lot to do. Don't go anywhere. Right here on Locked On Big Ten. There's nothing quite like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. How about the ending of the Pacers-Cavaliers game 2? Incredible. Wouldn't you like to be there and feel the electricity of the crowd? Well, if you're a Cleveland fan, probably not. If you're a Pacers fan, yes. It's electric in an arena, and Game Time can help you be part of it. Take the stress out of last-minute ticket buying. Game Time makes it easy to get playoff tickets, even when the demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals could save you up to 60%. Last-minute deals save up to 60% of buying last minute for sports, also concerts, comedy, theater. If it needs a ticket, Game Time is where you get it. The all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College, for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Well, thank you for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen every day, especially everydayers out there. Meanwhile, hit that free subscribe button down below. We're making a push to 18,000. We're going to get to 20,000 before the start of football season. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. Speaking of football season, Notre Dame, Clemson. I mean, Notre Dame's already loosely affiliated with the ACC, and they play everybody every once in a while. They're going to play Clemson every year for 12 years. Signed a 12-year deal to play each other. Deal runs from 2027 to 2038. The 2027 start is what is interesting because it dovetails with the end of the current USC Notre Dame contract, which ends in 2026, which will be the 100th anniversary of that rivalry. You know, you add this to USC athletic director Jennifer Cohen, who talked about this rivalry in February, which, you know, again, started in 1926. And she acknowledged that it would not be impossible to see the end of this series, given all the travel across the country and the new Big Ten and all this kind of stuff. She feels like maybe they don't need to continue the rivalry with Notre Dame. But she did say that she still remains in contact with Notre Dame about the series. Notre Dame has a 52, 38, and 5 record here. They've won 6 of the last 7. Maybe USC doesn't want to keep playing in this series anymore. Big Ten schedule's tough. A couple losses in there already. There's some writing on the wall. And with other conferences like the SEC, maybe going to 9 conference games and the Big Ten with 9, there are less options for Notre Dame as an independent to schedule people. So maybe they're grabbing on the Clemson here just to get something on the books. But anyway, 12 years, and that goes beyond the next TV deal. It's crazy. And, Locked On Big Ten everydayers know our position is that the ACC's got about 5 years left before teams start departing to go to other conferences with more lucrative TV deals like the Big Ten and the SEC. We talk about that all the time. So a 12-year deal with Clemson. I thought that was really, really interesting. Meanwhile, talking about lucrative TV deals, the Big Ten hauled in $928 million for fiscal year 2024 and distributed $63 million to each of its 12 longest standing schools, according to federal tax records. That's a 5.5% increase overall for the conference, a 4.5% increase per school compared to payouts in 2023. And again, getting $63 million a year is pretty good, but it's still going up because projections for 2025 predict an increase of $1.2 to $1.4 billion for the conference when the most recent TV deals kick in full pace. So what does that mean? That means each school should expect a 2025 payout of around $75 million. With the exceptions of newcomers, Washington and Oregon, they got to kind of ease into it. They're phased in over a 7-year period. It was part of their agreement to come to the Big Ten. But this is still, $75 million a year, still considerably higher than the SEC schools who brought in $52 million in 2024. The Big Ten is king. The Big Ten is king. So the NBA Combine is next week, May 11th through the 18th. There will be 10 Big Ten players working out there. Tell you who they are. Ace Bailey, Rutgers. He's expected to be a top 3 pick. And Dylan Harper from Rutgers, expect to be a top 10. You got 2 top 10 picks on your team, and it wasn't that good of a season at Rutgers this year. But those 2 guys, they're going to go pretty high in the draft. There's Vlad Golden. He's going to be there as well. Good size, probably a second rounder, though. Kasparis Sionis with Illinois, probably going to be a top 10 pick. Well-rounded game. Luka Doncic vibes for a lot of people and a smart player. There's Derek Queen of Maryland. He's going to be there. Probably a late to mid lottery pick. Remember, he had the game-winning shot against Colorado State to get to the Sweet 16. There was Jace Richardson. Going to be interesting from Michigan State. He didn't even start at the beginning of the year. I don't think he started till February and just took off. And his draft stock as well. Very late bloomer, but he's good to go. Going to be a first-round pick. NCAA tournament really helped his resume. There's Will Riley from Illinois, and he's got some length. He's got some skill. Maybe a late first-round, early second-round pick. Lots of upside. John Tonje, Wisconsin. Big guy who can shoot. He can shoot at all 3 levels. Inside, mid-range, three-pointer. Well-rounded scorer. Bryce Williams at Nebraska. 6'7", probably going to be a second-round pick. He's one of those 3-and-D wing guys that everybody's got to have. There's Danny Wolf of Michigan, very versatile, good passer, great passer for a big man. Plays some D as a 7-footer. They'll go in the first round. So those are the 10 guys in the Big Ten that are going to go to the NBA Combine. You can go to the Combine, and then if people tell you, you're not really good enough, or you're going to be a late second round, if you have eligibility, you can go back to school. So that's good. But anyway, that's what's coming up next week. And there were some guys that had some pretty special seasons and special careers, and they're going to get a look at the next level. So all that's coming up. Speaking of coming up, we always do features at the end of our podcast that you all like. We got our top 10 Big Ten observations from the weekend on Mondays. Tuesdays, we do Tuesday tweets. Hit me up on Twitter or X. I'll put it on Tuesdays. Wednesdays, we do power rankings. Thursdays, we look ahead at the Big Ten Network and what they have scheduled. We highlight a few things with Big Ten classics and live action. And Fridays, we make our picks if there are any big games going on. If not, we look at futures odds, that kind of stuff. So Thursday, we're going to take a look at Big Ten classics, see what's going on. Some TV watching for your Mother's Day weekend. All that's coming up in 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I bet you didn't even know that. So check it out. Head on over to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On and get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation with Amazon Fire TV. Check it out now. All right, let's take a look at the Big Ten Classics and live action coming up this weekend on the Big Ten Network. We are not affiliated with the Big Ten Network, but we have a lot of similar interests. So I thought I'd point out a few things here for you. We'll go full screen. If you're audio only, don't worry. Won't leave you out. We're going to start out kind of a light schedule on Friday, May 9th. Point out at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Got some the Big Ten softball semifinals for the Big Ten tournament. And the number one seed versus, or the number one game. These matches are to be determined. 7:30, we got a second game, second semifinal. All right, so both semifinal games Friday for the Big Ten softball tournament. And then on Saturday at 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern, got some Big Ten baseball. UCLA is at Illinois. And then 11 o'clock, you're just laying around, floating around with the remote control. They're at the plate feature. They're going to feature Jordan Ball. We talked about her a couple of weeks ago. I think she was the player of the week in the Big Ten in softball, right? Both an offensive and defensive threat on the field for the Cornhuskers. And you can hear from her what it means to come back home and play at Nebraska. Also, you can hear from Maryland's Sammy Woods on how playing flag football has influenced her style of play on the softball field. Learn how USC's Ethan Hedges is making an impact as a two-way player for the Trojans, and see how rising stars Chloe Banks and Julia Gossett and Mariah Polar are leading by example for the Purdue softball program. That's at the plate, 11 p.m. Eastern on Saturday night. You can check that out. As we move to Sunday, May 11th, let's change it on the screen here. There we go. Got a bigger slate here. Starting off at 8 a.m. That's right, your Mother's Day. Don't forget your moms out there. But if at 8 a.m. you want to watch a little highlight of an hour of Big Ten football, Nebraska and Ohio State boiled down in an hour, snap-by-snap coverage. Will Howard throwing for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns to help lead the fourth-ranked Buckeyes to a 21-17 victory over the Cornhuskers. That was a great game. Cornhuskers had a chance at that one. That was back in October. At noon Eastern, another one of those Big Ten football in 60 highlight shows, Maryland at Minnesota. Max Brosmer passing for 4 touchdowns to help lead the Golden Gophers to a 48-23 win over the Terps. And then we get into some baseball doubleheader at 1 o'clock Eastern, Maryland at Minnesota, followed by Purdue at Indiana. Always big when those two get together. And at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern, Big Ten softball. It is the Big Ten championship game for the Big Ten tournament. Teams to be determined. So check that out for your weekend. That's a look at Big Ten classics and live action on the Big Ten Network. Hope you can check some of that out as well. All right. There are many ways for you to interact with me. Love to hear you with the comments. Get the interaction going on YouTube, plus on Twitter. You can reach out at Talk Big Ten, number 10. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com, the number 10. See it on the scroll on the bottom if you're on video. Whatever you do, be sure to hit that subscribe button because it takes a second. There's no information required, and it's always free. That way you'll never miss an episode of Locked On Big Ten. Always recommend you go back and catch one you missed. I know you don't watch every day, although you should. We're here every day. We're the only Big Ten podcast, video and audio, that covers all 18 teams, Big Ten news, analysis, and opinion. We never shy away from analysis and opinion on that. All under one umbrella. It makes us the most unique Big Ten podcast in the world. So check that out. Also, I'll invite you for a second listen. Go check out our friend Brian Smith at the Portal show that he's got. All things transfer portal, keeping you up to speed with your favorite teams. You can check him out as well. In the meantime, we're going to talk about Bryce Underwood and Michigan tomorrow. And how all this suspension talk with Sharon Moore, how's that affect him? Brand new young quarterback with all that going on. We'll get to all of that and invite you to join us for that. Tell your friends about us that we're here each and every day. For Locked On Big Ten, I'm Craig Sheeman. Talk to you next time. Thanks for checking us out.